Hey, Gabriel,
Hey, Gabriel, Jose.
where are we today?
We are in our apartments. They're never going to open up the bars ever.
Well, to be completely fair, there are like some bars that they have outdoor seats where you can go.
It's true, but those seats are few and far between, and several people just like us have the ideas to sit at those tables.
Mm, that's
But we
fair.
think that maybe next recording we might try
Okay. Eh,
record from a bar. Maybe not a dive bar, but a bar.
Well, at this point, I think that I'll be happy with just a bar instead of the dive bar. Like we survived this time.
Too.
Yeah. So what did we watch today?
We watched the 2001 made-for-TV film Wit by Mike Nichols, starring Emma Thompson.
Okay, so my question to you, Blake, is why do you hate me? Why did you make me watch this movie?
I wanted to give you the gift of good cinema.
Of suffering.
I wanted to introduce you to the to cinema with gravitas.
Oh my God.
So we watched this movie because this is my gateway movie. I was let's see, it was 2001 when this came out. So I was either 16 or 17, and I just happened to watch this film on HBO, and it blew my mind how good this movie was and how nobody was talking about it. All anyone was talking about at that time was G.I. Jane, and I was like, this is a really, really good movie. And it taught me that movies could be more than what was being shown at my local cinema in rural Idaho. And that set me on my journey to feel like I'm superior to everyone with my movie taste.
I had to say that is like I found like pretty impressive that what kick off or kick started your travel through life and and cinema, it was actually a movie that is about the death of someone and the suffering.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, but it's like, Uh, yeah, so I guess that I should summarize what the movie is about. And this
Please
about,
tell
yeah,
us.
yeah, this is the story about a 45-year-old college teacher that specializes on the poetry from a single 17th century uh, English writer that is called John Donne. I
John Donne,
never,
yep.
yeah, I never heard of him before. It's like he may be like just, did
He's
you?
like, like he's not like as big as Shakespeare, but I mean, if you took an English lit class in
Oh, gotcha.
America, you know who John Donne is, at least
Gotcha.
who he is.
Yeah, so basically it's the story about this woman that sacrificed everything for her academic career. It's not a sacrifice, it is like for her, it was never important to have any life outside of her devotion to this specific area. So they display everything is like pretty minimalistic. And it's like from the point that she is given the diagnosis that she has like four-stage cancer, ovarian cancer, and that they want to try an experimental approach to it that is like basically doing like 8 cycles of chemio, like full chemio. That is like no one had ever like gone through it, and they expect that maybe it was safer, but in any case, there is no other alternatives. She's going to die anyways, so better to try that. That's dying, I guess. So the whole story just takes place in the hospital where she is like being taken care of by one of the doctors that used to be his pupil, his student, her student, like many years ago, because he needed to take something from literature because supposedly in America, like doctors need to be like well versed on everything, a bit of everything. That I guess maybe by surprise for sure. So and also her relationship with the nurse that is like this very empathetic woman that he cares for her and her last days of life. Because, of course, how through the movie they actually unveil that there is not going to be any possibility of her being healed, and she chooses that she doesn't want to be resuscitated if at any point she actually goes into cardiac arrest. Uh, I have to say, my opinion is that this was one of the most devastating movies that I ever watched. The script is top notch, not about like the high level idea. I think that is like pretty smart how it connects with her passion, but it's not only about like her passion about like 17th century literature, but about like this specific writer and about how everything is about life and death. Something that probably she never like really approached in this kind of ways. It's like very pragmatic, and until close to the end is like she doesn't really falls into the place I'm going to die, and how she actually just faced that fear of death when up to that point it was like pretty clinical about is that, oh yeah, I understand what the doctors are saying. I know that I'm going to die. I don't want to be resuscitated, and I don't have any family or friends, so it's fine.
Yes, the vast majority of the movie, the vast majority, is from her hospital bed as she just deteriorates. And she breaks the fourth wall
Oh
frequently
yeah, no.
and talks to the viewer. She goes through her life, not like in a chronological way, this is what happened in my life, more like
Yeah.
I feel like I made a mistake in this way. And you see a scene from her life previously.
But the funny thing is, like, she doesn't really acknowledge until she breaks down towards the end that she made a mistake. It's like she even says that it's like I chose academics over people. That was my call.
But so the scene I'm thinking of specifically, and it's not towards the end when she dies, is there's a flashback to a student asking her for an extension on his
Oh
paper
yeah,
because his grandma died, and she basically says, "Go to the funeral, don't go to the funeral, I don't care, but the paper's due when it's due."
do
And
what you
she
do.
says,
Yeah,
"Did I say that you are 19, you are so young, and you know nothing yet, and show compassion?" No, I didn't. Like she's going through, she's
yeah,
like showing regrets for the way she lived her life,
yeah,
while
yeah,
at the
yeah.
same time fully maintaining, fully supporting her choice to live her life that way.
Yeah. So I mean, until at the end, she breaks down crying. When she actually realizes about like what is the situation that she's in. Because even with the other teacher, that it was her teacher when she was growing up or she was going to graduate school, that it almost feels like she took that position when she retired, almost. But it's
Yeah.
like she's the one that shows up at the end. And it's like she actually shows up and says, well, I was in town because I was just coming for my grandkid or great grandkid birthday party. And it's like, well, she actually had the same career as she did, but she didn't sacrifice the personal perspective. She had a life.
And that's why I really liked the layered aspect to this, is that she became the expert on the holy sonnets of John Donne, right? Which is all about life and death and salvation after life. And she understood these poems to an extreme, but she never implemented what they were actually about. She never lived her life based on the teachings of John Donne or the suggestions of John Donne. And I thought that the fact that this professor, her mentor, there's a flashback to when Emma Thompson goes to her as her professor, and the professor's like, "You didn't understand this paper at all. Like, you didn't get it. You used the wrong source material." And she's like, "You're right. I get it. I'm going to go back to the library." And she's like, "No, don't go
No,
back to the
just
library.
go and
Go
live
spend
life.
time with friends."
Yeah.
And she chooses not to go spend with times with friends. She went back to the library. And
Yep.
that's how she messed up in her life. And she's only coming to understand this now.
Yeah. So I liked it, quote unquote. It's like I liked it. It's like I think that is really smartly written, not only from the high level perspective, but also the dialogues are really, really engaging. It's like all the lines are like perfectly delivered. I was like really surprised right now. We're checking the Mike Nichols career, and I realized that this was a TV movie, that it was never released in the cinema. Because it's true that it's a very small movie, but at the same time, it's good. It's really
Yeah,
good. It's like it's the
it's
kind of
really
style
good.
that it's like
It's an
Emma
HBO
Thompson.
original.
Yeah, but it's like Emma Thompson. I was surprised that Emma Thompson, for example, didn't win an Oscar for this because her acting is amazing.
Yeah, it was incredible. She should have. I wonder if she won any acting raises.
Oh no, I didn't say that far, but now the part that I would like a bit more, and I told you about this, that is like I find devastating, this movie like being devastating because even like at the beginning, there are parts that you can almost feel like a comedy. It's like all the fourth wall breaking. from Emma Thompson. That is almost every single scene. There is like a couple of sentences that she looks to the camera. Is that there is something hilarious from time to time in there, but it doesn't prepare you to exactly what you know that is like a inescapable ending that you're going to be finding in the movie.
At one point, she even references the play that she's in. And she says, if I had been writing this scene, this is how I would have written it. But
Yeah.
um,
So this was based on a play, no?
it was based on a play that won a Pulitzer Prize.
Oh,
And
nice.
then Mike Nichols and Emma Thompson wrote the script together, the film script. And then Emma Thompson starred in it. And yeah, it's interesting because you used the word brutal to describe it. It's intensely emotional. But for some reason, for me, the word brutal doesn't work because it's just this journey that you're taking on, and it's so realistic, and it's
Yeah. I mean, I
it's
say,
like for serial killers, not watching the sweet woman die slowly.
I mean, that's still like pretty brutal to me. It's like seeing how actually deteriorates. For example, let me just put you another movie that this movie made me think of. Love by Haneke. Sorry, Love, no, Amor. Amor by Haneke.
Like what? Okay.
Yeah. But Amor by Haneke, like just seeing like the degradation in the mother, you know, that is like, and actually the father not being able to do anything, and just seeing how he progresses towards like what you know that is going to happen at the end.
But
Is like,
that's a good example that is brutal. Like she makes her husband hit her, and then he like lays in bed with his dead wife. Like that's brutal. This is
a spoiler alert
this.
too.
Yeah. Well, if you haven't seen that movie by now,
You
there's a
don't deserve.
brutality to Michael Haneke's film, but to watch her go through this very natural process of dying, even though it's a terrible way to die, it's I don't know. There was something about it that was just was so authentic that I didn't feel that it was brutal.
I mean, for me, it was brutal, and I mentioned this from the perspective of what are we living right now. Is a part of the message that she's talking about. Is about isolation. She chose isolating herself. She chose that it's like I'm my own island, and maybe I'm compromising with my work, but at the same time, it's like I don't want anything to do with other people. Yeah, I don't have any kind of interest on that. And it's like what it felt brutal to me is like just portraying it on the reality that we are living on right now. That is true, is that we don't have cancer. Or well, or maybe we do. We don't know. Who knows? But at the same time, it's like we are isolated right now. Not by choice. Not because we are like in love with our careers and we don't want to talk with anyone else. Is that we are put in a situation that, as I told you, if now you go to the hospital, no one's going to be able to visit you.
Yeah, I went through that with my dad. He was in the hospital for a month, and nobody could see him. Nobody, and it
Yeah,
was horrifying.
yeah. So, I mean, I think that is like beautiful, like how she approaches the process. About like, well, she at any point she never actually stop and feel pity about herself. She's a bit more like,
No, and that's because she didn't feel pity for herself. I think she embraced the consequences of the decisions that she made.
yeah,
And at the end, she got scared and sad and reached out to whoever was near her. And those were truly authentic moments. And it wasn't, I don't know. I just felt like in movies where people are dying of cancer or some sort of terminal disease, they stop being an individual, a real person, and they become the disease. And she never became that. The film never is reduced to, oh, this is a story about someone with a terminal illness. It was a story about her.
well, it was about her going through a terminal illness and how that terminal illness actually helps her open her eyes about her decisions in the past.
Yeah, I don't know. Did you sense any regret besides not treating people with kindness? And that's something she touches on in a couple of her monologue is the meaningfulness of kindness in moments like this.
Yep. Yeah, that she actually says like now it's ironic that is like what I wanted from my former student is exactly something that I never provided, that it was kindness and human
Which is
touch.
another aspect of the the script that I absolutely loved is that she never showed compassion or humanity in her genius. She was a technical expert of the theory of John Donne, but there was no humanity. And now she is the thing that people are studying because her doctors aren't just treating her, they're using her to study the disease. And so they're not treating her like she's human. And they are theoretical experts at what they do with zero humanity. And she's finally understanding
Yeah.
why that was so fucked up. She was like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that the script is like properly written. It's like, when I was watching it, it's like I was thinking, it's like, wow, it's impressive. I mean, someone can do a script this good about something so small, let's say. Is that there is someone that actually went like a long way for saying, okay, I'm going to be like taking John Donne's writings, I'm going to be applying it to this woman, and I'm going to be like making this mirror image with the rest of the academics about like her reflecting about it. And I felt like, okay, writing a script like this cannot be easy. This is not something, or like the original play. It's like this cannot be something that is like you just do in a weekend, or like Aronofsky with Mother. That is okay, I started on a Friday and on Sunday I had a movie. It's like there is serious work on this, and then at the same time I was thinking, is okay, why HBO will produce something like this, and then we have so much shitty cinema with terrible scripts. Why Hollywood could approve like so much content that it has such a mediocre script when you
And
have stuff like
this is the
this.
question. That's literally the question. I remember we had AOL dial-up at this time, and I watched this, and I went to Google it, and I couldn't find anything about this movie, and I'm like, what the hell? This is so above and beyond anything else that I could go see right now. Why
Yeah,
isn't this a bigger thing? I don't. So
yeah.
anyway,
I mean, honestly, I don't know why HBO didn't actually release this on the cinema.
it was a different time. I mean, you saw the doctors didn't even use computers. I was like, why are you writing things on clipboards? That's not safe.
Yeah, I mean, I had to say that maybe the only thing that I was not too much a fan of, that it was a bit more on your face, it was when she goes into cardiac arrest and the guy tries to resuscitate him, to resuscitate her, while the nurse is saying like, no, there is a DNR code, don't do it, don't do it. And there is like the blue team that they come is like, no, there is a DNR code. Is like, okay, sure. I mean, I get it. Is that you're just emphasizing that the doctor doesn't see her as a human being. He only sees her as a research paper.
Yeah.
And he wants to just keep her alive at any cost for just continuing any kind of research that they wanted to do.
I think you're right about the script, and I think I would like to research. Her name is Margaret. I can't remember her last name, but this seemed to come from such a deeply personal, authentic place, and the emotions that I felt were brutal. You're right, but it wasn't the same sort of kind of like emotional manipulation. I didn't feel emotionally manipulated. It was just I was watching this happen, and I experienced a lot of emotions, and I don't think any of it was just to make you feel bad on purpose.
Did you feel like Haneke manipulates you?
Yes, but in a more, not in the same way as Lars von Trier does, where at the end of Nymphomaniac 2, for some reason, the main character's best friend just squats over her and pisses on her. And you're like, okay.
It's more heavy-handed with Lars von
Yes,
Trier.
it's more subtle. Um, I don't know, man. I I watched this film. Oh, let's talk about the second to final scene where Professor
Oh
Ashford.
God, yeah. I broke
I'm.
down, and
That
that
was
is
just like the greatest scene. So Vivian doesn't have a single visitor the entire time, which is a little bit weird because you have at least one visitor, right? No matter who you are. But um, and then she's
oh.
in the last.
Is
No,
there
I'm just
someone?
saying.
Is there someone that the hospital pays for you? You don't have any visitors.
But
They
if
just
she
put
has
like
this
an imaginary
huge,
friend.
if she has this huge academic career and she's the leader in her field, you at
Hmm.
least have somebody from the university to come by, somebody that I don't know. You have somebody. It doesn't matter. I think that she didn't have any visitors to give the scene where her old professor comes to visit her, this incredible, we were talking before the podcast, you said emotional payoff, and it's just the moment where no matter who you are, you will cry. I sobbed.
Yeah,
I think you cried. It's the most touching moment where she just wanted somebody to show her kindness while she died, and somebody came and showed her kindness, and it just like, it was just the most lovely scene, and I could go on and on about it.
yeah.
But I'm
No,
curious about it.
the what? You're curious what?
I'm curious to hear what you thought about it.
I thought that that was devastating, but it was also like really nice. You know, it was, I was telling you, like, it's the emotional payoff. That is, you have been like just building up this kind of, okay, I have to be tough, but I'm tough by nature. But at that point, she actually breaks down. It's true that it's like, okay, she's morphing, she's like in the last stages, of progression. It's like probably she's like just barely conscious, but it's like the sweetness of the teacher that also looks like extremely professional, the older teacher about like, okay, how she connects with like you need someone. Is you didn't have anyone, there are no flowers, there is nothing here about like showing you kindness or like connection with human beings, and how she just immediately said, okay, I'm going to be like just lying next to you for a moment. I felt like, okay, from an academic perspective, I would feel weird, but we don't know everything about the relationship that they used to have. We don't know if it
I
was like 10
suspect that they
years.
continued a relationship after she graduated, and she was the one. This is all a story I projected onto her, that they became friends. They were women in academic circles specializing in this. Again, I'm making this all up, but I hoped that Vivian had somebody like Professor Ashford in her life. Otherwise, I don't think I could handle this movie. It's too much. It's too much. And to have someone as talented as Emma Thompson do all of this, half of the movie was just a close-up of her face, either in pain or talking to you.
Yeah.
It was just touching.
Yeah, no, it was incredible. Honestly, I think that it was like just impressive, like her acting. That's the reason why I was telling you that it's like I wish that she was nominated to something. Because I just feel like this was a disfavor from HBO not releasing it on the cinema, because this is a good movie. It's a good movie. It actually just affected me
Say
just
it's
to,
good.
yeah, I said that it's good. It's like I told you, it's brutal, it's devastating, but it's a good movie. But it's like I just had the feeling that for me, I was during a pandemic not in the best place for enjoying a movie like this. And I will never ever watch it again. Never.
What?
Never. I promise you, I will never watch this thing again. Because how it's true that that from time to time you see like a sad movie and you can just like get a bit emotional for a second. I had to stop it. I had to stop it at that point about like I need a moment for
When the
actually just,
professor comes?
yeah, when the professor comes and she actually gets in bed and she starts like just crying and breaking down, but it's like that she can no longer keep like a smart conversation or anything, and the teacher start like reading this book about the rabbits, and I love the comments that she does like, oh, that's delightful. That's really smart. He's like,
An
you're really
allegory of the soul.
allegorical, huh? He's like, so you're like just analyzing this as if it was like 17th century literature, a book for 3 years old. That's cute.
In college, I had to give a Freudian analysis of a Dr. Seuss book called "Are You My Mother?" It was very interesting.
That sounds amazing, honestly.
I'm checking the IMDb page to see. So she was nominated for Emmys, nominated for Screen Actors Guild. It doesn't look like she won anything, but the movie and the director won quite a bit. Oh no, she won an OFTA, Online Film and Television Association. That doesn't sound like a real thing in 2001.
No, probably not. Can you check for me on IMDb just to see if I'm going crazy or not? But check Margaret Edson.
Is that the playwright?
Yeah. So it looks like this movie. Huh, that's interesting. I will be like curious to see that. This play was adapted twice. It was adapted in 2001 and it was
In
adapted in
2004?
2004. Yeah,
I saw that on IMDb. I wondered if it was the same.
but it's on Spain. This all the cast is from Spain.
Wow. So is that what
So
we're watching this week?
never, never. I promise you, I'm never going to be like watching anything based on that story. Never.
So I have to say that I have not seen this film since I was 16, 17, and it had this huge impact on me. And I was so curious to see how the film was going to hold up after 18 years?
Yeah.
No, 19 years. And I would say it's as good or better than I remember it.
Yeah, it's yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that is like a very out of time, timeless story kind of thing. Because even when you're talking about cancer, it's like I don't know exactly if the progression that we have, if it would actually be like a different situation for someone that it was in a stage four, a terminal stage. Even from the scientific perspective.
Yeah, I don't know how to say this without sounding like a total douchebag, but for me, the film is not about cancer. It's about her. She happens to have cancer, but it is about who this person is, and she does happen to die. But it never becomes about her cancer for me.
I don't know, man. I mean, because there is also like this parallels with the student, how he looks at cancer is similar to how he looks at John Doerr literature. It's about this thing that is okay, it feels like a giant puzzle that there is no like a clear solution. So both of them, they look at their passion in a very clinical way.
Yeah, which is the mistake that she only can realize now that she's dying alone.
Yeah, yeah, holy shit. It was honestly no, this was not a nice movie to watch. It's great, it's a good movie. It was fucking devastating to me.
I rewatched the final scenes like 3 times.
You're sick, man. You're
Also,
fucking
they
sick.
used Arvo Part's Spiegel im Spiegel very generously. It's that piano music that plays that's so gentle.
Oh yeah,
They use it in
yeah,
a lot of films, but it's just so sweet here and so perfectly fit.
yeah. I mean, I think that that part was the only one that I felt like, okay, this is a TV film.
That the music was
The music was
manipulated.
like, yeah, the music I felt like it was a bit too heavy-handed. I feel like, okay, this is what you want me to feel. And I feel like, okay,
And
you
that's
don't
fair.
need it. You don't need it. You have like a perfect acting. You have like really smart script. It's like, what do you need to just, like push it even deeper with the music?
I would have loved to have seen this as a play, although I did read that the Vivian on stage was a very angry person, and so much so that it made sense why nobody came to see her because she was a bitch. Um, so I would be curious to see it.
But you mentioned earlier that is like even like someone on her position, someone would go to see them. And even like she mentioned that it's like if I end up dying because of this, I think that my students would put like this work together, and they would mention some words about me. It would be more about their self-promotion, but they would still be nice and sweet.
Her coworkers, yeah, they said that in order to memorize or commemorate her, they would put together collections of their own essays on John Donne.
I love that. So basically, like, just using her death as a vehicle for the self-promotion.
Self promotion, yep.
But at the same time, don't you think that if that was the truth, that those people may still go visit them so they can actually say is that, oh, I actually see her in her dying bed.
Yeah, and I think that's the one piece where that is slightly manipulative about the play or the script is that nobody came to see her specifically so that the last scene with her
That was more
professor
important.
would be so profoundly uh, just
Devastating.
chock full of emotions that you wouldn't have gotten if she had periodic students that, oh, I really loved your class, or you couldn't have that and have that scene be as powerful as, and it's fucking powerful. That scene, holy shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I cannot remember. Well, maybe I remember a scene from the movie that we watched Nest that is like as devastated. Well, it's devastating, no, but it's so emotional. It's almost as emotional as that. But
Yeah, I was thinking like Dancer in the Dark may have done it. Um,
Holy shit, yeah, that's in the at the end is also another movie that is like when that scene happens at the end, it's like I actually had to leave the cinema because it happens and the movie goes black, I think,
yeah.
and the credits start rolling, and it's like, yeah, I'm not going to be like waiting until the light goes on. I'm running out of the cinema. Bye.
But again, Lars von Trier cheats. He cheats and he makes characters that aren't real. And I feel like this character was so real and that they didn't cheat.
So wait a second, you feel like Salma is not real? You feel like this academic specialized on 17th century John Donne literature is more real than a factory
What Lars
worker
von
going
Trier
blind?
what Lars von Trier did with the Golden Heart trilogy was make three women that were so perfect. They were too good for this world. They were too kind, too generous. They were not real
Sure.
characters. She was a real character.
Yeah, she was. Yeah, but it's like at the same time, I agree with you. Then now, the more that I think about it, the less sense it makes that no one goes to visit. And it's like I understand why the original play makes her a bitch. But in this case, it's like she's not a bitch with people. I mean, she's uncompromising, as he says.
Yeah.
But she has never like mistreated any of the doctors that work on her, or like the nurse or anyone. She feels like a completely decent person. There's like if you were
And
their neighbor, really great.
so her nurse, that was supposed to be the polar opposite of the doctor who treated her completely like a non-human, she was an incredibly,
Kind.
yeah. Do you agree? Disagree?
Sorry, second. I mean, you actually just broke for a second. You
Oh,
said
sorry.
that, yeah.
I'm saying that her nurse was so generous and kind with her, and I felt like she was supposed to be the polar opposite of the doctor. Um, that I was surprised by the one comment when Vivian's basically gone, and they're actually putting a catheter into Emma Thompson. Like it's just the indignity of this disease is just horrific. But she says, the doctor says, when I had her in college, she was a night like everyone was terrified of her. People hugged the walls when she passed. And the nurse says, well, she wasn't an easy person to be here either. And I was like, she was like,
She was
you guys had a
perfect.
good rapport and she was never mean. So that's just a carryover from the play that I think
Yeah.
they
It
took
was not
out. Like,
regretted. Yeah, that part, you're absolutely right. That part could actually have been like a bit more regretting. And besides, even at that point, is that the nurse gets along really, really well with this guy. I think that even like just calls him by a nickname, like Jace,
Jace.
yeah,
Yeah.
instead of Jason, that I felt like nothing up to this point in the movie actually would make me think that this is the relationship that you guys had.
Right. And no doctor that's doing a fellowship will ever have a nurse call him by a nickname. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I think that the movie is great. Don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
it's like I think that
Oh, no.
towards after that point, I had the feeling that it's like even with the do not resuscitate part, I just felt a bit weird about it. I think that after the emotional payoff, it's a bit more or less that look, at this point, the audience is just disconnecting. Is that they are like just devastated. So it's like it doesn't matter. It's like everyone knows that she's going to die. Whatever it happens from this point onward is like, it's just secondary.
I disagree with you. I mean, those last 10 minutes, all of it is just pitch perfect for me. But as we've spoken, I'm an emotional masochist. I
But
just,
but isn't during those 10 minutes when the catheter scene happens?
I'm talking about from when I'm going to find out I pronounced her name wrong the entire time. Is it Ashford?
Maybe I
From the
don't
time
know.
Professor Ashford comes to the end, including that
Ashford.
DNR scene, I just, that ending is perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that at that point, the start like just, I won't say like downhill, but I think that that scene with the teacher is like so emotionally draining that from that point is like I didn't care too much about like when they're like trying to resuscitate her and she's like just fighting to just push them away. It's like, so wait a second. So you cannot push them away the first time they even like just try, they saw her once and it's like, but now you do. After that, when you're like just jumping in front of them, it's like, hey, this is a DNR code. Hey, is okay. We try to resuscitate everyone for just living in the air. It's like maybe she's going to be like coming back to life and remaining as a vegetable.
No,
But
they would never listen to the nurse. Finally, the doctor started screaming at them, "I made a mistake," and they stopped. And that's when they started to make fun of him. Like, what is he, an intern? He called us up here for a code, and there's not even a code. The point is, they wouldn't listen to the nurse because the nurse was treating her like a human. They would only listen to the researcher
to a
who had
doctor.
some recording.
Okay. I mean, if it was any other movie, I would be checking it right now. Being this movie, fuck it. You are right about anything. You are right. I don't care. I'm never going to be like pressing play on this movie ever again.
Okay, so you would never watch it again. Would you
Nope.
recommend it to anyone?
Nope. I told you today we had like a tea time today, and I told them, it's like, this is a great movie. Don't watch it. It will break your heart.
But that's it's a nice experience sometimes.
No, look, as there are other people, I mean, I love horror films. I love them. But I understand that there are people that they say, is like, I don't like horror and I don't understand why people would watch something to just get scared. It's like, thank you, you actually opened my eyes. It's like, I don't know why people would watch something just for feeling bad with themselves.
But it's not to feel bad, didn't it? Didn't it? And it did. We were talking about this, but we could stop ourselves from talking about the movie before we started recording. You said that this movie made you think about yourself and your own relationships and how you're investing your emotional energy.
But not in a good way. Not in a good way. Maybe just think is like I just wasted my life.
But
I can turn
but
it I can turn
but
it
don't
around,
you
but
think
it's like the point is like right now what I was telling you is like as we are in the middle of a pandemic, I don't have a way of turning it around. It's about isolation. It's like we are isolated right now.
my
In the
chihuahua is very upset?
Well, your Chihuahua is actually just breaking that isolation. I wish that I had a Chihuahua right now. And believe me, I would never say that outside of a pandemic, of a global pandemic.
I see what you're saying, but there's not many movies that make us sit and reflect. And you kind of look at it as a glass half empty of, oh, I've been fucking up in certain ways. I look at it in a way, Jesus, how can I look at my interpersonal relationships and the areas I'm choosing to invest energy and what can I do so that I don't experience this?
And I'm not telling, look, I told you it's a good movie, but it's an emotionally draining movie. It's not like a heartwarming movie. You know, it's like now, actually, next time we will watch a movie that is actually heartwarming and at the same time it's also a bit emotionally draining. This is a
I,
heartbreaking movie, as you told me.
I just think that because something is emotionally draining doesn't make it worth it.
No, you have the Turing horse. That is everything draining. It's life draining directly.
It drained my will to stare at a TV screen.
Honestly, is that this is a movie that I don't know who I could recommend it to. I would recommend it to you because I think that the script is majestic, but I have no idea who could consume this movie and just feel like, okay, this was good.
I have one friend that I know that I could recommend it to. Well, I made you watch it. And I have one other person that I might recommend it to. So the answer
But
to those questions are I definitely would watch this again, 100%. And I would recommend it, like, no doubt.
to one person,
Yeah, because not everyone watches the movies for the same reasons that you and I do, which
that's fair.
most people are, it's like binary. Is it happy? Is it sad?
Sure, and this is actually a mixture of both. And it's true, is like it's happy, well, happy from the perspective that she is a strong woman going through this process, and she's with a very analytical way about like, I'm not going to be like letting this getting me down. It's not about like, I'm not going to be like letting this getting me down. It's like, I cannot even fathom why this would get me down.
I'm so proud of 17-year-old Blake and his recognition that this is a masterpiece
Yeah,
and set me on the journey that led me here to Gay Bros Go to Dive Bars to
to
talk
talk
about
about
movies.
cinema. Honestly, do you think that from an artistic perspective, there is something about this movie?
I think the decision to shoot it the way they did it was interesting. And you know that I love face close-ups. I know you don't like it, but Ingmar Bergman just basically did close-ups because he thought everything he needed to show should be on the faces of his actors. And
Yeah,
the movie starts out very strong, very extreme close-up on her doctor's face saying, "You have cancer."
yeah.
And then so yes, I liked, there was a lot of artistic direction that I think was beautiful and interesting, um, with the limitations of it being a made-for-TV film in 2001.
Hmm. Yeah. How did you feel that the doc from Back to the Future is the main doctor here?
So I saw that he was in the film before I started watching it. I didn't remember that from when I saw it 20 years ago. And I was also extremely impressed with him as an actor because he didn't feel like Doc in the slightest. He felt like an old, out of touch cancer doctor.
Yeah, but I almost felt like he was more human than the student, than Jason,
That could be true. I think we got a lot more FaceTime with Jason,
the student.
but Kalikian didn't necessarily present with the best bedside manner either.
That's true.
I don't know.
So the only thing that we didn't talk about is about the rest of the works from Mike Nichols. The
Yes,
just checking
so
is like extremely varied.
what else of his have you seen?
The Graduate, The
What you
Birdcage.
like?
The Graduate is probably one of the strangest movies that I ever watched. Did you watch it?
Yeah.
I
I think we may have
felt,
watched it together.
mm,
No?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Let me just check the spreadsheet. But I had the feeling that for a while we were not
No, this was
recording a result.
pre-spreadsheet.
Yeah. I when I watched it some years ago, I felt like it was a very, very strange script.
I liked it a lot. I don't remember it very well, but I remember thinking, oh, I've avoided watching this for years, and I actually like it.
Yeah. I remember the ending. Like about like I love. Do you remember the ending?
Hmm.
So when they're like driving away or they're in a taxi or whatever, like
A
together
bus, a
or a
public
bus,
bus.
it was a bus, and like
Yep.
how they face like the shot is like the face of both of them, and it's like how they start at the beginning like just happy, and they're like, what the fuck are we doing? And it's like it almost feels like it's a bit more of a reflection about the 60s, about like just a confused decade, about like we need this to be happy, but it's like when we actually accomplish this is when we realize that we don't want it. So it tries to reflect on a society that doesn't know exactly what we want, that they are like just trying to pursue ideas of happiness that they're never going to happen. So I felt like this was one of those movies that okay, you can just keep it, from the perspective of what happens in the movie, like just the face value of it about like the guy, was it Dustin Hoffman?
Yep.
Dustin Hoffman like just having sex with his girlfriend mother, and that very iconic scene. Or you can actually just take it for a bit more like the metaphorical perspective that it presents. It
So you,
reminds me, sorry, it just reminded me a bit from that perspective to Blow Up. Is Blow Up the Antonioni movie?
yeah.
Yeah. That is okay. You can just take it about like this surreal thing that is happening here, or just trying to make it a bit more about the generation and the reality of that point.
So you didn't like The Graduate. You did. I loved Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and I liked The Graduate. And I think that is. Oh no, I fucking loved Closer and Wit.
I Closer, it just left me. I mean, not emotionally devastated, but it's like I like Jude Law, and it's like yeah, the guy is an asshole, but it's like everything that happens to him is just bad.
So you haven't seen anything else by Michael Nichols that you like?
I mean, The Birdcage is a light comedy. I mean, not a really light comedy, but it's light-ish, let's say.
So would you be interested in watching anything else by him?
I told you, and before we started recording, is that we check what else he did, and I would be interested in watching Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. I heard a lot
That's a
about it.
fantastic film.
Yeah. But no, I would be interested because I cannot, if I think about Closer and Wit, they are pretty different movies. I feel.
I feel like he's really good at putting plays onto the smaller big screen. I
Oh,
feel like he's really good at that.
so Closer was a play too?
I don't know if it was originally a play, but it certainly felt like one. I mean, just having the four characters interacting in different settings.
Yeah. No, that's true. It's a very minimalistic kind of a
Yep.
story at the end. It's only the
It's a
four
play by
actors.
Patrick Marber.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's not that I dislike it, the movie. I just felt, I don't know. I mean, I think that at that point I was appreciating my movies being a bit more upbeat. Not upbeat, but it's like I want some kind of resolution that doesn't make me feel like, God, you just wanted your characters to suffer.
Look, I gave you Clueless, you hated it. I gave you Wit, you hated it. You're just chronically insatiable because this movie was a masterpiece and probably a 10 out of 10.
Okay, that's fine. So that's your score.
No, no, no.
I told you, it's like I think that this is a good movie, but it's like when we actually go over the criteria that we usually ask ourselves about, like, I will watch it again. No, I would recommend it. No, I don't hate anyone that much. And from an artistic
Oh,
perspective, it's like I
I don't
think,
use that to figure out our score. I just
oh no,
find
no, I know. My score is independent. It's like we
okay.
usually just ask ourselves these questions.
Yeah.
And if I think about the artistic perspective, I think that this is a functional movie from the artistic perspective. I don't think that there is anything outside of the script that I would remember. Well, and the acting that I would think is like this is transcendental.
So you didn't like when she would go into flashbacks to her younger self and then it would interchange with her in her hospital gown. You didn't like
I
any of that?
I wish that now I remember the Charles Kaufman quote from adaptation about like using flashbacks and using voiceovers about like these are the cheapest resources that you can use as a screenwriter. And but they're good. They
Yeah,
are
no,
well
I
played.
don't. That doesn't apply here because the play was taken from the entire perspective of a hospital bed. You can't
Yeah.
have a 90-minute play from a hospital bed.
But I assume that they actually do something like that. It's like at that point when they use I'm going to be like putting a younger actress for playing her, but at the same time putting her replacing the younger actress. Like, like she reading the book when she's a little child on that flashback scene, is that I can see that emotionally this has some kind of impact.
See, and from a direction perspective, I would love to see the actor playing Vivian in a hospital bed and then her father being there by a fireplace reading a book and she getting out of bed to go reenact that scene from her youth. I find it all charming, all of it.
Yeah, I mean, and look, I think that's the point when I realized that this has to be theater. This has to be theater
Yeah,
because it looks like the kind of stuff that theater would do.
it is, but you have to say this must be Pulitzer Prize winning theater. That's how you have to say
Sure, Pulitzer wise, whatever. Honestly, it's like I think the source material is good. I feel curious, but I would never satisfy this curiosity about like just reading or watching an adaptation of the original play for just seeing like the difference on the character, on Vivian's character.
For me, this was, like I said, this was my gateway movie. This is the original movie for me. I don't want to necessarily get a different idea of Vivian or her experience.
Well, I mean, for me, it's more like just filling the holes. Filling the holes, we're talking about like, well, is the nurse like that, or is it actually something that it was adapted for more emotional impact? Or is the character is Vivian like a nice person that it has like very, very high standards, or she's a bitch,
I don't know.
and we will
I
never
love this
know.
movie. We will never know.
I,
So what?
I will never know.
What's your score?
My score is an 8.
Oh wow, mine's an 8.5. So I
Okay.
feel like
I
we were
mean,
close.
I told you, it's like I think that this is a marvelous script. It's amazing. And I feel pissed that a movie like this didn't go to the cinemas.
Yeah, but yes, I completely agree. I also agree that HBO probably understood there's not an audience to pay to watch Emma Thompson die for 2 hours. So whatever.
Sure, but it's like, oh, well, wait a second. So actually, there is not a market for that, but there is a market for seeing. Oh crap! What is her name?
Julianne Moore get Alzheimer's.
No, I didn't watch that one. I don't want to watch it. I look, I already watched like too many movies with her. No, crap. What is her name? The actress from I don't want to see them. The core. Hilary Swank. Hilary Swank dying for half a movie in $1 Million Baby
Well, because she's boxing for most of that movie, and then Clint Eastwood kills her.
is half of the movie. Is
It's
half of the
very
movie in
different.
boxing. Is half of the movie in boxing, and they half of the movie dying. That I felt like really pissed when I watched it. You know, about like what the fuck? I thought it was about the boxing. It was not about euthanasia.
Well, I'm impressed with your score. I loved watching this movie again after 20 years. I'm happy to introduce you to it. Now I can finally say that I made you cry. So,
Holy shit! You cannot imagine how I cried. It was like just bad. You know, emotionally bad about like what am I doing with my life? And honestly, it's like I had the same kind of feeling with Dancer in the Dark.
but see,
I
we keep belaboring this point, but I understand how wit can influence me moving forward and changing the way I live my life. I don't understand what the fuck Lars von Trier wants me to do after watching Dancer in the Dark. How am I supposed to interact differently? He didn't
being
give
a
me any
better person.
perspective that I didn't have before. Yeah, shitty things happen and people die. I get it, Lars.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, like, I remember after watching Dancer in the Dark the first time, I was feeling like, okay, he wants me to be a better person, but at the same time, he's like the better person suffered a terrible death. You
Yeah,
know,
this is why he's a manipulator, and this was a story that taught me something about myself.
but the funny thing is that that kind of message, that kind of format, and we have discussed this like hundreds of times about Haneke and Lars von Trier. That is like Lars von Trier in this case with this trilogy, as you were saying, is that he's just portraying people that they are supposedly too good for this world, and they suffer.
They
They're
don't
just there.
suffer, they die. They die. They get murdered.
Where
They
the other,
die.
okay, breaking the waves. How did she die? I don't remember now. She commits suicide.
I think she goes out to that boat that she's not supposed to service all the men, and she gets raped and murdered.
Holy shit, I have forgotten that part. Yeah. So I only remember that like she dies and then his husband goes back to life. That she was in a coma? No?
Oh,
No,
that's right.
she was not in a coma. She was like paralyzed.
He was in a coma.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. He was in a coma and he actually comes back to life, like
And I think
magically.
God doesn't God tell her that if she fucks everyone on that boat, he'll come back to life, and she does. Oh my God! Fuck you, Lars von Trier. Fuck you.
But in any case, it's like actually God's words came to life, and there is like this non-dogma scene at the end where there is like this pan out, and you can see like the bells in heaven like just tolling for her.
When it's my turn, we're watching The Idiots. We are watching The Idiots.
Wait, was Idiot the Idiots like the other movie from the Golden Heart trilogy?
It sure was Dancer in the Dark, Breaking the Waves, and The Idiots.
Holy shit, man! Holy shit. Uh, in any case, I think that for example, like Haneke is about like just making people go through bad stuff for just portraying how terrible humanity is as a whole.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so it's a bit more like just, you know, like the kind of metaphysical concept that we have, like humans, they are not terrible or good by nature. It's a bit more like society turns you into something.
Yeah,
That it may be good,
groupthink.
yeah, it may be good or it may be bad. And Haneke, what he tries to tell you is that no, it's always going to be bad.
Yep, nope.
When we're like just pushed against the ropes, it's going to be bad. Don't worry. And Lars von Trier is true that I think that I agree with you that it may be a bit more manipulative. And in this case, this movie, I had a feeling that is like is not manipulative per se. You know, there are like some parts that I don't think that they match with others, but the end result of how I feel after watching it, there is not so much difference between like watching a Haneke, a Lars von Trier movie or this. I feel empty.
That's an interesting point because I don't feel empty after this movie. I was so touched by the kindness shown to Vivian at the end that it made me feel nice despite the horrible thing happening. Whereas when I watched the girl get pissed on at the end of Nymphomaniac 2, I thought, this is just, okay, I get it.
Gratuitous.
Yep, I don't feel anything because this is too much.
Okay, this for me was not an uplifting movie. It
It's not
wasn't.
uplifting, but you can be touched by what would you call a display of kindness in a time when it was so needed.
Sure, sure, but that's basically like just, almost sounds like the HR narrative about like, can you point in the doll where you were touched? It's like, okay, I was touched here in my heart, and it was perforated completely. So I was touched by it, but it was for me, it was not touched in a positive way.
I don't know. I feel like that argument could be made with any like uplifting movie, like The Fall, where it's like, oh, there was this horrible emotional,
Spoilers,
mental.
spoilers,
Oh,
spoilers
sorry.
around this time.
Okay, yeah. Anyway, I get your point, but for me, it's not that.
Okay. No, I mean it's fine, and I think that's the beauty of cinema is that we're going to be like relating in a different kind of way. We're
Yeah,
going to be like just understanding and just relating to movies in different ways. And I think that this is a good movie. It's like this is one of those movies that is like, okay, people may actually take it in different ways, and it's still like it's the same movie, and it is still equally good for both of us, or close to equally good.
so what are we watching next week?
So next week, thank you so much for bringing it up. But next week we are watching the what year is it? 2007?
That sounds about right. Maybe
2006, 2006. The 2006 classic by Tarsem Singh, The Fall.
nope, by Tarsem. By Tarsem.
Tarsem. Tarsem.
It's not visually appealing to show his last name on his credits. So
That's true. Tarsem. It's just Tarsem. He doesn't like to just go by his full name. But yeah, so this is interesting because it's a movie that we both watched like multiple times, but we were discussing that I wanted something a bit more uplifting than this movie. And this is also a movie that I think that is a comfort movie for me,
yeah,
but I
me
also
too.
think that emotionally it also has some weight to it.
It sure does. It
Yeah.
sure does.
All right. Well, anything else that we should talk about with?
That's it for me. Almost
Okay.
perfect.
Well, no, I mean it's not almost perfect. There's like many other movies that you have more than an 8.5.
I know, but I love this movie so much.
Would you say that this is a movie equally good as Shortcuts?
No, there's a level of genius I think that Shortcut has that.
Oh, that this doesn't?
What did I give Shortcuts? I
8.5?
I would definitely say that his movie is better, but I don't know if it's the scale. I don't know. It's an
Yeah.
interesting thought. We should just have a podcast at some point where we just discuss how our scores compare.
Yeah, yeah, I think that we end up like just doing that a lot of times.
Yep.
Okay, man, this was, I won't say great because fuck you. I'm sorry, but fuck you. Because the wailing that I had yesterday is like, yeah, I was for a second like concerned, like, are the neighbors going to be thinking that someone is killing me right now? Yeah, that was not pleasant. But in any case, I'm looking forward to the fall.
I sure am too.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for listening, folks.
Wash your hands.
Bye.